It's like trying to win a car race.
Should be a good one.
And as you're driving, saying, hey, make it run better.
You could have a posse of waifus.
Starting off kind of strangely.
Slaying the land.
Welcome to the show.
This is insanity!
Taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week.
This info is pretty shocking.
Somebody's got to give an answer to this.
This is Augmented Reality.
You are watching my favorite channel.
I've not heard of them.
The Triple S League. Enjoy, guys.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Augmented Reality Podcast for March the 30th, 2021. Oh, man, I forgot what year it was there. It's CDPR's fault for having all of this news. It's been feeling like 2019 or 2020 again. Just Cyberpunk 2077 news breaking just before the podcast. Welcome to the Augmented Reality Podcast, your source for news, leaks, and analysis of games and the gaming industry. Coming at you live on YouTube and Twitch and archived almost anywhere you can find podcasts. Ash here with Subsidian and Moontag. This is a presentation of the Triple S League as always. How's it going today, folks?
Oh, good. I thought, hey, it's like springtime, right? Like the weather went up like a little bit. So like I went to the gardening store and I got me some gardening stuff. Like I got me a new, a spade with an extra long handle for leverage, of course. And I go and I try to dig and the ground was like, nope.
The ground say no.
So I gotta wait.
Yeah.
Ground says no.
It's frozen, but it has been nice. I had a bit of an adventure this evening with my daughter. We're out walking in there's these woods right by my house, and we found somebody had made a lean-to out of like logs. And it was huge. Oh. It was huge, and there was a fire going inside it. I was like, nice. I don't know if this is legal. But then we walked out past this lake. That like this stormwater drainage lake, that those are around in towns and stuff. And the top of it was frozen, and there were these two teenagers standing on the ice, and a third teenager standing on the bank, yelling and swearing at the other two to get off the ice. So I stuck around there, just in case I had to call 911 or something, while my 8-year-old daughter learned all sorts of new words. She told me later she didn't hear any swearing, so I don't know if she was telling the truth or not. But then we're on our way home, and she's picking up every piece of litter she finds, and is like, "Where's the garbage, Dad?" I'm like, "Child, do not ever change." Just when you're that age of those idiots that were on the ice, I want you to still be this sweet, innocent kid who picks up garbage in the park. It was wonderful. Anyway. Yeah, so that was my evening.
I should really quantify this very carefully. It is here and here, like just here. It is still okay to be on the ice. That stuff's not going to thaw for another like 3 weeks at the earliest.
The ice was it was not safe to be on the ice where we were. But anyway. Yeah.
Oh, I wonder if there's something heating there because it's still solid everywhere. Again, I quantify this here where we are. If you're in New York or anything south of the 59th parallel, 49th parallel. No wait, it doesn't matter. Either or, you basically don't be on the ice. Don't be on the ice. So yeah, ice is one of those things where it's extremely unforgiving. And it is not something that you want to dive into. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, I think that goes without saying. Anyway, so as I said, Projekt Red news today.
Yeah, lots of it.
It's felt like it has felt like 2019 or 2020 again, just because of all of this. But they dropped the patch 1.2 for Cyberpunk 2077, and it's just huge. It's ridiculous. By the way, slam that like button if you haven't already. And, of course, subscribe. It's been nice seeing that subscriber count climb here on the podcast channel. We would love doing that. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. It would really help us out as we are just growing this channel, having moved the podcast off of the main channel and onto this new channel. And, once we hit that 1,000 sub mark, that'll be fantastic and more things can happen. But anyway, it's been great seeing the watch time and the subscribers grow here. So yeah, let's get into the news with Cyberpunk 2077. So patch number 1.2 is out for consoles and PC and on Stadia. So it's out for everywhere, and it is just huge. There's just so
It's over 500 points.
many things like that. You see,
it is enormous.
I've scrolled through half of it here. If you're watching on YouTube or Twitch, I've scrolled through half of it. It's ridiculously huge, and it's hard to really find any specific point that really jumps out. There's just so many. It's like, we fixed this issue with this NPC. We fixed this issue with this character's animation during this quest. We fixed da 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 da. They did have the things they had promised would be in there, like the NCPD spawn radius has been improved as they announced it would be. The steering sensitivity, they put these things right up front, as that's to be expected. And of course, way down at the bottom here, there's all of these stability and performance fixes. And according to this, it makes the biggest difference on last generation consoles. But it'll improve performance across the board everywhere, apparently. And then this one kind of caught my eye. Fixed incorrect censorship when playing a copy of the game from a region other than Japan, while the console region is set to Japan or language to Japanese. So I don't know if that means it was uncensored in Japan if you bought a version from outside Japan, or if it was censored outside Japan if you bought a Japanese version or set your language to Japanese. I'm not sure, but anyway, it's just I found it interesting that this basically demonstrates that yes, the game was censored in Japan. So there you go. So Cyb, did anything jump out at you from all of this, or Moon?
No, this is basically a lot of like minor fixes. I would even call the NCPD and the driving and the steering. All of this stuff is really small and minor. This basically makes the gameplay better. Hopefully. I was watching a couple of people reacting to this earlier, and there's not a humongous amount of jumping up for joy, because a lot of this stuff is just a lot of minor, like, polished bugs and tweaks and fixes that really honestly should have been out. If most of this stuff had come out now, and if the game had been released next, like tomorrow, right? It's the 30th, so it's quickly ending on the 30th now. But like, if it had been launched, tomorrow or the next day, beginning of April, I think a lot of these issues would have been resolved, and perhaps they really did need to push that back. And I think if they had made that decision back in the summer, going, this whole worldwide issue thing is getting worse. There's a lot of stuff. We're getting delays left, right, and center. We are gonna have to, hold this over until April. If they had done that, I think they would have probably saved themselves a lot of headaches. Would have been better overall, I think. But yeah, no, this is a lot of like small time fixes, and I am honestly less interested in these than the amount of things that were confirmed today in their business call.
Yes, we will definitely get to that, because there are some interesting things coming down the pipe. I definitely understand what you're saying about in hindsight, maybe they should have delayed it further. Of course, we're talking about a company that had they were receiving all death threats and all kinds of crazy stuff every time they delayed this thing. There was just a massive backlash. I can see that really getting to them as well.
I think the mistake that they made there was that they assumed extremely incorrectly, that they should try and have that release date as close to their finished time that they think or thought that they had. And this is something that a lot of companies do wrong. They're like, when's the earliest we can get this out? And this harkens back to that old Star Trek thing. It's like Chief, I need this ship up and running in as soon as possible. And the technical guy goes, well, Captain, you're gonna need 8 hours to fix this and get the thing running. And he's like, you've got 4. Make it so. I just want to stand there as somebody who's seen the nuts and bolts of a lot of companies, and just slap the captain across the face and go, what the bloody do you think you're doing?
He said 8. That's how long it's going to take.
You should say, all right, we'll get ready to go in 9, because how do you this is how and I always wanted to see that. I always wanted to see a captain just getting in the face of his engineer going, I want these warp engines online, and approximately, I know I've switched the accents now. I want these engines on at exactly 5 hours, Captain. I need at least 12 in order to be safe. No, you're going to do it in 5, and if you don't, you're going to get a severe talking to later on. And then he's like, okay, 5 hours later, he's like, okay, Captain, try it, but I want you to know there's an 80% chance that we're going to explode. And the captain's like, oh, don't worry about it. All right, ahead, warp factor 9, go. And the ship just explodes. I want to see that happen in something, somewhere, sometime, because the idiots who are like, oh, yes, we're going to make this work no matter what. You're an idiot.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to be in this job. And clearly, and clearly they've recognized this, because they talked a lot about that in this little presser that they did today for their investors and stockholders and stuff like that. And it basically boiled down to them saying, yeah, we're going to improve a lot of the things that we screwed up on. Basically was the running theme of everything that was going on.
Yeah, exactly.
Was, hey guys, yeah, we messed up royally, and now we're going to try really hard to make everything run smoothly by the time, in the future, etc.
So I will start bringing some of that up on the screen right away. I just want to acknowledge all of our patrons and channel members and Twitch subscribers. You see their names popping up on the top of the screen right now. We thank all of you folks very much for helping to support this show and keep it going. I also see that we've got some viewers on Twitch, and that we have a new follower, and so thank you all, and let us know your thoughts in the Twitch chat. I'm keeping an eye on that, as well as the YouTube chat. So folks, as we go through this today, let us know what you think in light of how the release of Cyberpunk 2077 went. Let us know what you think about CD Projekt's new direction, their new plans for development, and all of just so much happened today. Not just today, but a lot of it was announced today, or reported on today. This is kind of things that have been unfolding over the past couple of days. So one thing that happened is that CD Projekt Red, it's been reported, has actually acquired Digital Scapes, which is a studio based in Vancouver, Canada, if you're not aware, that they helped on the development of Cyberpunk 2077. Now, the name sounded very familiar to me when I saw this story, and I recalled that we had reported on it when CD Projekt Red had brought on Digital Scapes to help with the project. And so we reported on it then, and now they've turned around and bought it and rebranded it CD Projekt Red Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. Why do you think they did this?
I think they did this primarily to confuse everybody in the future whenever these people were applying to various companies, and on their CV it says, such and such, working at Digital Scapes from 2015 to 2020, and then CDPR Vancouver, and having some idiot interviewer asking, so why did you change companies here? Were you just not happy with your previous company, or what was the reason for this move?
Yeah,
and you're like, it sold out. They became a new company. So why did you move instead of staying with the old company? Because they got bought out. Yeah, but I mean, if you really loved your job, then you would have stayed in that job.
I really don't think this would happen. I would hope not. But then again,
No,
unless they're applying
I
to,
have had this happen to me before, so I trust me. Well, it wasn't with a company that was bought out. It was with a job that ended. Because it ended. That was the end of the contract, and the person's like, "But you could have kept the contract going if you tried harder, correct?" And it's like, no. See, no, it's a government thing. It only goes for for a limited amount of time. Then the job ends.
yeah.
So, it's a contract. Anyways,
Let's talk about the real reasons why they did this.
Well, yes, obviously the real reasons they did this is that they are expanding. CDPR is expanding. They're expanding quickly, and they are actively looking for more things to expand into and with. This is pretty big because this means that we're going to be getting. Again, do we want to talk about this now? They're expanding into, and they've essentially announced today. This is the first time they've actually put something on the screen that says, "Hey, we are developing a new Witcher game."
Right.
There is a new Witcher game being made, and all of these, not all of these, this acquisition, and it appears as if they're hunting for at least 2 to 3 more places at the very least, is to help them co-develop the 2 projects at the same time. So building up their Witcher brand and building up the Cyberpunk brand with new games. So it looks as if they're wanting to have essentially 2 of these things being made at the same time, and then to have core teams move back and forth and have some people move back and forth between those things. Or if somebody's just really good on The Witcher, then they'll be settling in for the long-term work on, quote unquote, The Witcher for the next significant while.
Yeah.
So this is parallel development starting in 2022.
Yeah, this is not speculation, as I brought up the slide here on the screen. By the way, there's a lot of these slides being shared around on Twitter and elsewhere. They're from a video presentation that CD Projekt put out today. Now, it's not on their main channel. It's on CD Projekt Red. What's the channel called? Hang on.
It's something ridiculous and annoying. Because it's like, why don't you guys
CD Projekt IR, whatever that is. Actually, I'm just gonna look up I'm just gonna open the channel, see what it is. But yeah, so they put out a presentation today about this is investor relations. That's what IR stands for. So yeah, CD Projekt Investor Relations channel. If you're interested in watching that, now Saib, you watched it through. I skimmed it, so I was able to glean a little bit from it, but I imagine you watched it in more depth than I did. So
yeah, and
what else?
And it's pretty big. It's pretty big. So they are they have confirmed developing a couple of big things. They've confirmed that they are now in talks, or that there is that they're in some kind of progress of getting a live action Cyberpunk.
So like a show on one of those streaming platforms again, like
probably I would imagine. I mean, I really don't think a cable company is gonna want to buy it out. I'm just gonna go on a wild limb here and say yes. I would assume that this would be a streaming.
Does that mean no VHS? I mean, I won't be able to watch
pretty
this.
Sure, pretty sure no VHS.
All right.
So this is clearly in the process. We're seeing right now we're seeing this Dota show hit the streaming the streaming platforms, as well as being streamed on directly onto Steam, which of all things I clicked on my Steam on the other day, and there was an episode airing and it was live, just sitting in their live player. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I don't know why they do that, because it was right in the middle of an episode, and I was like, all right, whatever. But yeah, no. So this is something that is opening up, I think, more in the future for these things. I mean, if Steam starts having regular shows, and libraries of shows that they're just streaming out like, constantly. That's more interesting to me right now than, I mean, even Netflix is really. Like, I mean, especially considering recent events, it's like, yeah, that kind of stuff is way more interesting to me. So yeah, so that's been confirmed. Witcher anime is in production. So not only is the Witcher show, the TV show, did pretty well, they have a Witcher anime that is in production. It is not owned by them. It is being developed in conjunction with them. So that's really interesting, and I wonder, what exactly is going on there.
Well, I imagine it's similar to what the Witcher Netflix show. They,
well, it's an anime. I would consider that it's probably going to be quite different than the
in
TV
terms
show.
of in terms of the production, CD Projekt was not owning or in charge of the production of the Witcher TV show.
Again, I'm pretty sure that that's going to be separate from people who made the Witcher TV show.
Yes, I know. What I'm saying is
the live action show is going to be separate from the.
Of course, yes. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, like you're saying, it's separate. It's not owned by CDPR. Neither is the Witcher Netflix show.
Yeah. Yes, that's why I led with it's not owned by CDPR, but they're clearly working in some capacity with it because they made this point on their presentation that this is something that is that. It has been, has been sponsored or in some fashion has been helped by them.
Interesting. Okay.
So yeah, the big news is that Witcher next gen title is in production. Also, what they alluded to was that a next gen, and this is very specific, next gen Witcher game in production. Next gen Cyberpunk game also in production.
Right.
And at the same time, they announced that they were somewhat canning and or scrapping the multiplayer for Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah, I've got an article about that too. They've decided to reconsider their direction because it sounds like the reasoning was they wanted to bring multiplayer to both of their big franchises, all of their sort of projects going forward, so their next big project may not actually be the Cyberpunk multiplayer game. So that's very interesting. Now, I don't know. I almost think if I were them, I'd see how they do with one multiplayer game before bringing it to everything. Well, I want to know everybody's thoughts. And if you're in the live chat today about this new multiplayer direction and bringing it to The Witcher in addition to Cyberpunk, how you feel about that? So to answer Giagos on Twitch, they're not scrapping multiplayer, but their next big project was supposed to be the Cyberpunk multiplayer game, the Cyberpunk, like the multiplayer version or iteration of Cyberpunk 2077, whatever it would wind up being called. But it sounds like that may not actually be the case, but they're looking at bringing multiplayer in a more broad sense to both of their big franchises. This is all kind of tied together. We've got this parallel development of both The Witcher and the Cyberpunk franchises starting in 2022. So they're going to be working on both of these franchises side by side rather than alternating like they have been. And here's some details about how they plan to do that. They're going to bring on some cross-project experts, some people who will be good at managing certain aspects of both franchises. And it says on this slide too, centralize Red Engine to serve two franchises. So if they're incorporating some multiplayer things into the Red Engine, that'll be to serve both of their franchises. But basically they want to be able to develop both like AAA Witcher and Cyberpunk games at the same time, which is very ambitious for a studio that has struggled with
Well, they've tried this before and
Yeah.
it failed miserably. They've tried this before, and it's the primary reason. Instead of getting a Cyberpunk game in 2016, 2017, which was the original plan, we got it not even really completed and actually bug fixed until 2021.
So,
I mean, yeah, there was a pandemic and all that stuff in there too, but this is now obviously they are much bigger, and they are designing and developing this from the ground up to say, here is team 1, here is team 2, or in this case, here is team Witcher, here is team Cyberpunk. There's no 1 or 2. They're both things going on at the same time. There's multiple jobs that are the same jobs that are going out for the same people, and those people are going to be doing that job for a very, very long time. There's a handful of experts that are going to go back and forth. And for that, I would say probably music, probably a couple of their artists, probably significantly the majority of their animation team. So they're both their motion capture team, and then also the team that focuses on improving animations. Probably going to be the same team-ish, or have many core people going back and forth on that, I would imagine, because again, that's how you would work this kind of stuff when working 2 projects. It's like if you could do it right and if you can do it well, then I think what we're going to get is we're going to get a system that focuses around building up on their strengths. So this is a good way of doing it. The way that they've set this up, in theory, on paper, looks great, looks amazing. Do you have the building broader franchises based on our core? Do you have that screenshot? Okay, well, I will send that one to you, because
Yes.
this is the most important thing of the entire showcase. Was this one shot here? So this is the thing that I think is really going to set everything up for future franchising and future planning. Basically, we're talking essentially this is how they're going to run things in the future.
all right.
And so now we're going to see whether or not this works. And this is why they want to, and this ties in with this ties everything in together. This ties in all of the news that we're seeing today. This ties in the plans for Cyberpunk 2077, the current release of the game, their DLC, their expansions, all that kind of stuff. Then we've got this significant, we've got a significant draw here for their plans with the multiplayer, and then everything that's revolving around this. What we've seen in Cyberpunk, what we saw in Cyberpunk, is what I believe we're going to be seeing when it comes to in the music category. I think we're going to start to see that come into the what do you call it? The Witcher universe. There we go. It's in the direct message there. So this is the big thing. So let's because I kind of want to go through this, because this is very, very, very important. So live action content. We're going to start on the content side of things, because we kind of know what's going on with the game and stuff. We'll kind of dive into that in a sec. So their live action for Witcher is obviously currently ongoing, and then they have their long-term consideration, meaning that they're essentially in talks. They couldn't say, "Oh yes, we're considering this," and have no actionable stuff, right? Like they don't have any of that. So that's kind of the big thing. What the next thing here that we see is that their anime that they're working on for The Witcher is not held by CDPR. It's not owned by them, but they're still consulting, and they still have some stake in the project, obviously. So that coming out news about that being The Witcher, that's big news. We already knew that Cyberpunk was getting its own anime adaptation, and that's still in the works, and that is completely owned by them. Music, this is where we've got this interesting thing here. that they have this music that is available now, but I think that because they've added it here, I think they're thinking of like advancing this further. So we may see, how they had all those musicians come to Cyberpunk and do all those songs and create all that content, and it was enormous and big deals. I think we're going to see similar things in the works in the future for the Witcher universe. Then of course we've got books, and this now confirms that they're putting more stock in the books. They're putting stock in the comics, more into the merchandising. But then the next gen game, going back up to the top here, the next gen game, we've got in the pipeline. So they are actively like lining this up and keying this up to start production on this. So that means that they are working on next gen content for The Witcher, which means that unless it's just a retooling of their previous games, means that this is essentially a new title in the works. Now, this new title may be a multiplayer project, but I would kind of reference the online experience that they have down 2 rows there, stating that I think if I'm reading this right, the way that they've put this out here and the way they've been talking about the rest of the stuff and the rest of their plans, it appears as if we have a multiplayer concept in the works, and we also have a next gen, what would essentially be The Witcher 4, even though it's not going to be called The Witcher 4, it's going to be called The Witcher something else, because they're breaking away from the traditional story, and they're gonna expand in it in their own direction. I think so. Are there going to be lots of those characters there? Probably from the previous games. Probably, absolutely. One of the previous characters that were in the previous games may actually become the new central character of the new series, but we have no idea who and how that's going to work out. Right now, we're just going off of basically we're looking at what they're keying up here, and what I see that they've keyed up here is a next gen game, which means the way I would read that is it is a very much a next gen Witcher game, which means brand new title, something that's probably been in the works. Like we mentioned about a year ago, they have probably been writing and like theory crafting this for quite a while. I would not be surprised if they've been, theory crafting this probably since 2016. I would say, but then they did have that that legal dispute.
Question about this though. We know that there are next gen versions of Cyberpunk 2077 and The Witcher.
I would not call that.
You don't think that's what that's referring to?
Absolutely not, because what if you would say that for Cyberpunk 2077, then that little blue check mark wouldn't be in the pipeline for Cyberpunk 2077 or for Cyberpunk content. That's in the pipeline, as in not produced yet. Well, they have a version coming that's going to be exclusive for the new consoles, but that is not released right now. So if you wouldn't say that is not released right now, then you would definitely not say that The Witcher 3 is in that same qualification. It would mean either a complete upgrade or something else done to that. So are they thinking about relaunching, maybe Witcher 1? That I would say is probably, I mean, it's in the cards, obviously, but I wouldn't say that it's lined up on deck. I would say that they're going with a new one. But no, what you're suggesting that it would not make any sense for them to say that when they look at Cyberpunk available on the new consoles, they are not quantifying that as something that is available now. That is something that is in the pipeline. And that is an exclusive, that copy, that version of that game is not going to run on the old consoles. So that would thus mean that if they're using that as the qualifier for the Cyberpunk thing, then that means that The Witcher is getting, obviously, a new thing,
which we know that they
program.
Are, though.
Yes, but they've alluded to that several times, that they're working on new stuff, but they never said what that new stuff is, and that they said that they're working on a new, next gen thing, but they're only working within the world of The Witcher and Cyberpunk currently. So again, multiple people assumed that well, what does this mean? Does this mean that we're getting another Cyberpunk game or we're getting another Witcher game? From this scale, it looks like we're getting both. In some, we're probably going to get a new Witcher game before we get a new, I'm using the air quotes here, a new Cyberpunk game, meaning that, a new single player Cyberpunk game that is on a, upgraded current engine with a new storyline, that kind of stuff. I don't think that is in progress right now. I think what is in progress is the online experience, is something that is in the pipeline. I don't think that they have abandoned the multiplayer stuff. They're just retooling it and reimagining it. And what that means, I don't know. Because I at this point, I'm not willing to speculate or guesswork on this kind of stuff. And these changes are still very new for a lot of people within the company. Within the company, I doubt, again, they have horrible communication there from the top coming down. So a lot of times where major things have been announced and the team heard about it on Twitter. So that's happened several times. That has been reported on by not just us, but by several other people, including some pretty big names in the gaming industry, at various points on multiple different topics. This is widely reported. So I would say that, yes, I don't think that most of this stuff was well known by absolutely everybody at the studio. I think a lot of this stuff was coming out new for them, when they heard it. So,
All right. Well, I think obviously there will be more Witcher and Cyberpunk games coming. I feel like this chart is referring to the next gen upgraded versions that, both of which have been previously announced. But in any case, I just received a message from one of our Discord members, Trauma Sentry, who posted, there's an updated article. This is all stuff that is kind of in flux right now. But there's a new quote in here regarding multiplayer and online from Adam Kaczynski. So I wanted to highlight this because this might shed some light on the situation. Kaczynski offered the following response regarding multiplayer titles. I'll highlight it here. Regarding online, we are changing our approach. So we want to have online in our future games, definitely, but step by step. We are working on specific features, enhancing our single-player games, but we are not working on releasing the next game as a big online experience. So we will be enhancing our single-player games with online experiences. Sounds like Cyberpunk 2077 multiplayer is no longer on the table. They are looking at creating single-player games with online features or integrating the online into the single-player. That's what I take from that statement.
No, I take from that statement that they're going to be bringing multiplayer features into Cyberpunk 2077.
Yes,
they're going to make a reason for you to play Cyberpunk 2077. So before, what we were going to have is we were going to have a standalone thing. From this perspective, if we're taking this as is, and this isn't new, by the way, this is the same thing. This is word for word what he said in the conference call.
Yes.
Video. So
yeah, I know. Basically, just further clarification and confirmation that the standalone multiplayer game is off the table now.
No, it's off the table in the sense that I don't believe that it's going to be standalone release. I think that they're going to integrate it with the existing game.
Sure, yeah, like the multiplayer is still coming, but this is not saying that there's no multiplayer coming. It's that it's sounding like they're going to integrate it with the single player. Yes, in this and in future games, probably a future Witcher game as well would have some kind of multiplayer thing built in, because that's they're talking about integrating it with both of their franchises.
Yeah, and I mean, right now, again, I really don't think that this statement should be taken verbatim. I believe that the statement is very much open to interpretation right now, and it is clearly being interpreted a lot of different directions, because kind of more or less what we're hearing from a lot of people is that, oh yes, no, they're coming up with this this new design for their new games, and it's going to be great. And what could have been interpreted is that maybe this is not the next big game that's coming out from them, in the sense of like an official release, because again, in the world of online games, you don't actually want to release the game. You want to put it into a permanent state of quote unquote alpha or beta, so that you can constantly fluctuate the game consistently and concurrently at every step of the way. And you are actually held to fewer standards when you do that, not just from gamers, but from actual live service providers, such as the Google Play Store, the Xbox PlayStation, all of those platforms that allow multiplayer gameplay. They have much less relaxed restrictions on multiplayer, on games, on any game that is in quote unquote beta versus games that are in that are actually released. And for this, I would point to Fortnite is still in beta. I mean, the game's been out for how many years now, and it's still in beta. It's the biggest game in the world, soaking in tens of millions of players, and it's still in beta.
Yeah,
so this is where again, I think what they're referencing here is that they will be approaching the same style of creating a multiplayer online experience, tying it into the sale of Cyberpunk 2077, and then allowing that beta to exist in a permanent state of flux, so that they can continue to tweak, change, alter it as they need to, because I mean, realistically, it's the best way to launch an actual online game. So
fair enough. It could be interpreted that way. I mean, that would be very ambitious if that's the case, to be wanting to bring multiplayer to Cyberpunk 2077 single player, also working on a multiplayer Cyberpunk standalone thing, also working on The Witcher at the same time.
Well, let me explain their reasoning for why I think that we can say that this is a for sure thing. And that is that in the raw aspect of it, if they have another game that they were to put out in a year and a half that's Cyberpunk multiplayer online, as a finished product for sale now, I think that the most people playing Cyberpunk who bought Cyberpunk 2077, who were upset by it or who were disappointed by it in some way, are going to be disinclined to acquiesce to purchasing that next game. So if they instead released it as a part or as a tie-in, if you already own Cyberpunk 2077, that you just get it for free, then that's going to enlist a lot of people to try it, because it's just boom, it's right there in there. It's right there. Click on this to download now. You already bought it. You're already in. But by doing so, that also reactivates them, because we know that we're getting a lot of DLC with the Cyberpunk 2077, and if they can then go back, as we see, this is a very common tactic that CDPR uses when they're selling a game. They sell the game originally, and then what do they do after that? They continue to sell the game. They continue to sell the game, and they continue to sell the game, and they continue to sell the game. The Witcher 1 sold nearly as many copies in the last year than it did when it launched in 2007. That is ridiculous, and also really cool at the same time. It's ridiculous in the form of you expecting to understand how normal game sales work, versus in comparison of looking at something that flies in the face of corporate, how corporations work now. So that's kind of really interesting.
Yeah, that is. I mean, that's a lot. Now, granted, they were a much smaller company back then, but
yes, true. So but they've done this repeatedly with their other games. They continue
Witcher
to sell.
sales are still
Yes,
crazy.
Exactly. Witcher 3 sales are still quite high because of the post work with Blood and Wine. The original game, Witcher 3, didn't do that well. It was very buggy. Where they excelled was in their DLC, and their DLC became the game of the year winner because of that quality of that work that they had done in the additional DLC. That's where they made their money. That's where they made the sales. And I suspect now that their plan is to get people to come back into the game because it's offering some new thing for free. And the 90% of people who didn't buy the DLC, what appears to be 3 major DLCs that are coming, that are going to be coming over the next probably 2 years, I would imagine. I don't think that we're going to get 3 paid DLCs this year. I highly doubt that that's even likely. I suspect strongly that it'll be over the course of the next 2 years at least. And that's where they're going to get those resales over and over and over again by purchasing those DLCs. Now, I mean, just looking at the game file size, we're going to start, because what was the patch today? 45 gigabytes? Wow.
I imagine, I hope that's not all code that just stays on your computer. I hope it's like temporary files and stuff, but yeah, that is big. Yes. All right. Well,
so this is huge news for The Witcher and for CDPR as a whole. Mm-hmm. I understand a lot of people were really upset by CDPR, or sorry, by Cyberpunk, by CDPR. They're upset at that. I get that. But I think what they're doing here is they're going back to their strengths. They're going to say the strongest thing about Cyberpunk 2077 is going to be our DLC, quite possibly our 3rd DLC. I think by then they will probably reintroduce a fair amount of the RPG mechanics, because that is what everybody has been asking for. And it was interesting listening to the video today, because you know how many times they said our action-based shooter game versus our RPG roots, or our RPGs.
Very interesting.
They said RPGs. They never once said our action-based adventure games. They never said. They said action, and they said FPS like once each. But it does appear as if they are more than. It does appear that they have realized now that their primary audience was an RPG audience, not an action game audience. And I really, really hope that they get this through their skulls when it comes to the first person / third person thing. I would collectively say that this experiment with the first person only failed, and that they need to bring in a first and third person camera into all of their games going forward.
I'm going to disagree with you there. I don't think any of their failure had to do with it being first person.
I think that the fact that nobody's talking about how amazing the first person was in that game has proved that point. It is not a point at which everybody's sitting around admiring their technical prowess for the first person experience. Nobody was talking about that.
I don't
think
anybody
is still
would
talking about that.
Nobody sits around and talks about The Witcher 3 and says, "Oh man, that third person."
No,
was
because
so
it's
fantastic.
a staple. Nobody talks about the staples.
I talk about how beautiful my Geralt's hair is. Excuse you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a stylistic choice.
But it was not a stylistic choice. They said that it was an artistic choice. Trust me, I had multiple arguments with devs on this exact point. They said that this was an artistic choice that would gain the recognition of the gaming community for advancing the technology and first-person experience of storytelling, and that first-person experience was something that was core to their everything, and that experience is what made the game the best game that they've ever created, which, of course, blew up in their face.
I would agree with you that statement is incorrect. However, I don't think that the first person is a big reason. Like, it's not on most people's top 10 or 20 complaints about the game. I know it's very high on your list, and I respect that.
You're still not getting it. It's not that it was on everybody's complaint list. It's that the praise and recognition that that certain devs were promising the leadership that they would be getting didn't ever show up.
Okay, that from that perspective, yeah, I can see that failing. It wasn't. I don't think that's something that was publicized.
If somebody is working with you and they're promising every day that they're going to create this brand new tech that's going to revolutionize everything, or they're going to create a brand new sound as musicians that's going to reverberate the society, and then they release the thing and nobody comments about that new feature that the artist or artists spent most of your money on, you're going to look at them and say, what we did here didn't work. You promised me this evolution and nobody cared. What happens when nobody cares? You go back to making staples.
Well, yes.
When you get rid of the mashed potatoes at your restaurant, at your fancy 5-star restaurant, and you start serving some weird side dish that nobody enjoys, nobody likes, most people don't even eat, or they go, it was fine. You're going to go, why am I spending $40 on this side when I could go back to spending $2 on potatoes?
Sure. But I'm saying that's an internal
Jagus.
That's an internal thing that
Jagus in the chat, he gets this. They tried some artsy fancy wank that didn't work. It just didn't work. I mean, it worked for what it was, but for what they were building it up to be, for what they were claiming that it was going to become, it didn't work. It blew up in their face.
But they didn't. Well, I'm saying it's an inside baseball thing, because their marketing was not largely based on it being first person. Like, I think that was more of an internal thing, from my perspective. But anyway, I mean, yeah, I agree from that perspective that if that's the reason they were implementing first person, then yeah, that fell flat. For sure. First person, I mean, it's not like it was some novel new thing. There's been millions of, maybe not million. I don't know how many video games have ever been made. There were first person actually. First person is not a new thing.
I do believe it's getting pretty close, if not past. I think they're at 1.3 million from one of the gaming museums that have been working away. I think they're up over 1 million right now.
In any case, what I'm saying is that it's first person is not new. No one's gonna think, oh, this game is first person. That's so revolutionary. There's been how many first person games, and it's not new to the RPG genre either. So
this was exactly my argument for so long, was that with a lot of the devs that I spoke with on a one-to-one basis, going, what you're doing here isn't not going to work the way you think it's going to work. It's like Inigo Montoya sitting there looking at the short guy and going, where did you learn such a word? I do not think it means what you think it means.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, I know I've been rattling my saber on this for as long as the game has been announced to be single player or first person only. And again, I'm not putting anybody down who thinks that the first person was fine. I'm just saying that what was promised didn't work out the way that was eagerly anticipated by everybody, believing that this was going to be a huge new advancement in the technology and a huge new style. I mean, I could, like, one of the conversations we had was that in order to tell this story, this deep and impactful story, you have to have the visual emotions that are happening in people's faces. I recalled that emotional response being, looking face to face with a person happening once, and it was when we were in the closet, basically watching what was going on. That was the best scene.
Yeah.
And it was like, I would have preferred at that point. I would have preferred a centralized camera to switch back and forth, so you could see the reaction on both V's face, your character, as well as the as well as Jackie's. And even I would have taken this a step further. If they really wanted to integrate the newest thing in first person reaction and interaction, then I would have had them take a picture of your face via your local camera and then showed your reaction when you were watching one of these scenes. That would have made the concept of involving whatever
except they wanted
to be
you
way more.
They wanted you behind the character's eyes. They wanted you.
Yeah, which we can collectively say did not work out that in the anticipated.
No, we can't
direction
collectively
that
say that. I mean, I understand where you're coming from with that, but I can't agree because that was not the only scene where, for me, where being face to face with a character had some emotional impact. Now, whether or not you like that is debatable. It's a matter of personal taste, in my opinion. And you are looking at it as from the perspective you've expressed before that being autistic, you don't like being right in someone's face, and so
it's not an enjoyable thing for me.
No, exactly. Anyway. So I see it. I see where that's an uncomfortable thing for you for sure. I think having the option would have been the best thing. Having the third person or first person option would have been better. I do see what they were trying to go for in terms of storytelling, but yeah, I agree as well that having that as that it was some revolutionary thing. No, I mean, their character animation, their facial animations, and just the character animations overall, that was far more revolutionary.
Big step up.
Yeah,
but we've been telling movies and visual medium for decades without the requirement of needing to without the requirement or without the use, because it's only been done I think twice, and the first time it was a tremendous flop, and the second time it was like a mild success in trying to tell a story from a first person perspective.
Well, in a movie, it doesn't work all that well, but it's harder to get that where it is harder to get that close-up emotional shot in third person, but they probably could have found a way to make it work. We'll give you that. I want to get to some of the chat comments here because there's some great stuff. So, Giagos on, please chime in, Moon. I know you haven't had a lot to say about this particular topic, but please do if you want to read some of the messages, for sure.
Well, I enjoyed Jago's comment on Twitch there, where hope your computer ate its Wheaties, because when you guys mentioned that 45 gigabyte update, I'm just like, yeah, I don't have time for that right now. Nope.
Jagos is sort of solo chatting on Twitch there. Says, seriously, I want to smack CDPR. That was the first comment. And then regarding the multiplayer, Jagos says, don't do multiplayer if you don't know how to do it. Also says, there's concepts they can do, but they need to get things taken care of with the base game. Agreed, for sure. So YouTube chat was pretty quiet for a while, but it's perked up now. Ali Mafuz says, sorry I missed some bits prior to this, but I'm glad you're talking about this. Well, if there's anything specific you want us to comment on, let us know. So, yeah, it's been all Cyberpunk and CDPR today, for those of you who are asking. All Cyberpunk and CDPR, it's like we're in 2019. Again, as I've said. All right. Let's see here. The Islington girl says, first person shrank everything in, and I have heard that critique elsewhere. It is definitely more claustrophobic. And I think... Islington girl goes on to say, the story doesn't suit first person IMO either. A flashy cyberpunk game with not seeing yourself. That was the biggest thing for me. I was like, okay, first person, I kind of get your argument for wanting to have the story, like, I kind of get where they were coming from with wanting to immerse the player in the character and see the world through the character's eyes. But
Hmm.
we're talking about a game that is supposed to be all about your visual your visual character design and your fashion choices and what your character looks like. That is a huge part of the game. And so I definitely agree from that perspective that it was like, why? Like, yeah, you spend so little time looking at your character.
This is true. Honestly, I have a difficult time remembering what my character looks like unless I pull up her picture because I chose like face tattoos, which I think were like similar to Jackie's, but like I said, I don't remember because I didn't look at her and I don't feel as connected to this character as I do to like this other game character who is running through a haunted horror mansion, like or apartment building, and I very much connected with her because I could see her running around like encountering things, and I felt for her because I could see her face.
Interesting. Yeah, that's, I mean, it's similar to the debate about should the character be voiced or not. There's something about when you're playing an RPG, maybe wanting to have the character's, voice in your own head so you can hear the line the way that you think it's being said versus a voiced protagonist. We had this debate about Fallout 4, but then I can also see in some ways not wanting to hard code your character's facial reaction, but let the player experience the emotion as they will, because some people might react differently to various scenes. It's one thing I'm finding with, say, Kingdom Come Deliverance, which has it's entirely first person, but it does cut to 3D cutscenes for important parts of the game and even a lot of side quests, and the way that Henry reacts is not necessarily how I would react to the situation. Like he kind of reacts in a preset way in a lot of cases. That's the limit. That's one of the limiting factors. It's still an excellent game, but it has that's one of the limiting factors of that. So I see both sides of it there. But still, yeah, for Cyberpunk, there should have been more opportunity to see your character, and to have the third person option should definitely have been there for that reason, for sure.
And in my opinion, regardless of like whether the protagonist is voiced or not voiced, I want my character's responses to be consistent with what they actually say after I pick the response.
Yeah,
Yes.
that is. I mean, there are a lot of companies that have really dropped the ball on that recently. I mean, there are
Not just recently. Like that's been an
yeah,
issue as long as I can remember. It's like
yeah.
I did that the other day. I said
The
what was it? Yeah, like
I guarantee you mine is worse than yours, but you go ahead first.
Well, no, mine's not very interesting. It was just a case of like where I was like trying to tell this person that this other character wouldn't do something, and the line on the screen was, "Oh, so and so can't do something," and so I thought that just meant that was just my character's way of saying, "Oh, they won't do this." But then Henry launched into this monologue about how, which was all a lie about, they're being prevented by this, and this, and I was like, that's not what I meant to do. I just was trying to say that, yeah. Anyway. Are you going to tell your Dragon Age story about how you ended up in bed with like a...
Yep, yeah, exactly. Dude's like, oh, I've had a really rough life, and I'm just so alone. And I'm like, don't worry, mate, I've got your back. In fact, you know what? I'm gonna pop a keg, and we're gonna have ourselves a cheery old time. Why are you undressing? What is going on here? Wait a second. I did not agree to this. No touch. And then, 2 seconds later, I'm involved in a scene that I had no intention of doing whatsoever.
Railroaded into a bedroom scene. That's yeah. Probably the best I've heard.
Yeah, I will never forget some of the scenes that were thrust upon me with no. All it said was like positive. It was some stupid innocuous thing too. It was like comfort him. Like, it's like, of course I'm going to try and comfort a friend of mine. Like, hey, I pat him on the back and tell, okay. Oh, no. And you're running out of the room. And the funniest one, I think, is watching somebody stream the game when they were playing a dwarf. And suddenly you're getting the dwarf, male and human male scene, and it's like, what is going on here? You know,
you're right. You're right, Jagos. It's not bedroom scene. It's sandwich making. That's right.
Yeah, sandwich making.
Harking back to the past podcast. So there's a couple more messages I want to read here. So, yeah, Jasmine Greeno says first person wasn't why the public had issues. Yeah, that's kind of the point I was trying to make. It wasn't the top issue from and I thought, like, I misunderstood what Cy was saying at first, but you know, it is a failure from a certain perspective for sure. Juju 9, we need DLC for sure, and I mean it probably the success of Cyberpunk going forward. Of course, it's how do you define success? Because I mean, it's been a financial success. Like they've made a huge amount of money, despite the fact that
lots of money.
Despite the fact that, you know, this wasn't the game a lot of us were expecting, and it's had a crap ton of problems. But they made a lot of money. Now, is that because the hype, you know, is it because they deceived us beforehand? And I asked Cyb earlier, like, what about the customer trust aspect? Are they going to believe CDPR next time CDPR shows them a game that looks awesome? And, you know, are they going to get that volume of sales again? And you think they will, hey?
Well, I think that their strategy is to go back to what they know. And what they know is that they had a bad launch with Witcher 3. That a lot of people completely glazed their eyes over and went, oh, it wasn't bad. It was the best game ever. Sure, it was buggy. It had huge problems, constant major issues that went unresolved for a very long time until that DLC came out. Then suddenly it was like, wow, this is the best thing I have played in a very, very long time. And everybody's like, yeah, this is seriously the best thing of it, because it was. That's the thing. And I'm not dunking on them. This is real. It was one of the best things that they had ever done up to that point. But that's the thing. That's the I don't know, case problem. I don't know how to say it, but it's like that was the problem, was that they had a bumpy launch, and that they'd run into these issues, and to fix those issues they had to go way back, really dig in, and then they had to come up with a good DLC that carried the success of the game whilst they fixed all of the base problems with the base game. And I suspect strongly that being in the exact same situation that they are now, that they were in back then, that they are going to look at the situation now and say, all right, we're just going to do the same thing again. And that makes perfect sense. And again, I'm not dunking on them, because that is their strength. And if that's their strength, then why wouldn't they do that?
Yeah, if they can pull this out, and in 2 years, Cyberpunk 2077 is one of the best games ever made, because the DLC just expands on what's there and just turns it into something amazing. I mean, that would be fantastic. And now I'll definitely I'll definitely be expecting that more in the future. Then I think if that seems to be their MO, maybe anticipating a lackluster base game and that'll be improved by DLC. Would rather it not be the case. Anyway, Wally Ram says this is just one more artifact of Cyberpunk's split personality development. It started as a simulationist RPG, which was then mutilated by Sony Ubisoft open world blandness generators. Indeed. Yeah, and there was one other comment that I wanted to read. Oh yes, Blue Arrow says, as a PS4 owner, I do have to say I am impressed with the latest patch. Still needs a lot of work, but it's going towards the right direction. That's good to hear.
And I feel so sorry for the people who are on very slow, very minimal internet access, who will get maybe a gig or two a month to play with, and are looking at a
45 gig patch. Yeah, that's...
That is painful, and we do have one of those members in our community whose internet access is extremely limited. Download wait is next to non-existent, and you can't play the game because you didn't get a completed product that was shipped to you on day one.
Mm-hmm.
And I very much understand the pain of people in that scenario, and that sucks a lot.
Yeah. Jagos asks, can CDPR change their teams around to do better? Yes, that seems to be what they're going for with this whole layout here. So they're going to have some what they call cross-project experts or cross-functional teams, as they call them. So there are some teams that could work on multiple games at the same time. So they can implement some of those, and I hope that just some good management is included in that. That's been that's been one of their downfalls is management structure. And, there has to be somebody in place to say, so when the game director comes in and says, I played this awesome game over the weekend, and now we're going to take this feature from this that I saw in this game, and we're going to implement it into this game that we've been working on for 3 years already. There has to be someone there to say, no, we can't do that. That's outside of our scope, and that's going to set us back by 2 years of development. It's just someone.
All I could think of is Cartman, she's like, no, bad kitty, no, bad kitty.
Yeah, so there has to be someone with the spray bottle there. No. Bad idea, man.
Spraying you in the nose. No, you do not do this. This is not helpful in any way, shape, or form. Go back.
It's just because the further along you get in development, the more you have to commit to what you've already done. Otherwise, you go back and there's a huge cost to going back and reinventing part of the game. Now, sometimes it's worth it. I don't know if you know, the original Shrek movie, Mike Myers, Shrek was originally written to be voiced by Chris Farley, I believe, and then he passed away. And so Mike Myers was brought in, and he just originally voiced the character in his normal voice. And then the lines had already been recorded. They were well on their way to producing the movie. And then Myers went to the director or producer, whoever, and was like, you know what? I really think this character should have a Scottish accent. So he re-recorded all of his lines for the movie, and they had to redo a bunch of animation. But in that case, it was worth it, in my opinion.
It was especially worth it now because that is the only income source that man has.
I think I've been hoping for a fourth Austin Powers, but in today's climate, I don't think you could make an Austin Powers movie.
I'm pretty sure that they announced they're doing a fourth one.
There's been a script written for 10 years now, but it's just never come to pass. But anyway, so sometimes that's worth it, but usually in most cases you come in with an idea too late in the game. It's like, you know what? We just got to finish this game the way we have been working on it for a couple of years. Jago says, I don't want another Austin Powers. I don't want another Austin Powers movie made in this era of censorship and Puritanism.
The only way that movie ends is by him becoming the villain, becoming the world dominating, no, now you will all bow to me, or he's summarily burned at the stake in the town square. I mean, I seriously think that's where that's going.
It's just makes me yearn for the 90s in some ways, where when stuff was offensive, we just didn't watch it, rather than having the
what? You mean I have a choice?
These cultural overlords telling us what's appropriate and what's not. Anyway, I'll get off that, because that's not what the show's about. We don't want to, and we should be wrapping up pretty soon here. We've been going for an hour and a quarter. But the one thing we neglected to mention that I just want to touch on very quickly is that they are also making some changes in terms of marketing. They have learned their lesson, and they're no longer they're going to have shorter marketing campaigns for their games. They're going to wait until much closer to release before even announcing their games. One of the articles I read
Shocker.
specifically said they're emulating Bethesda on that.
Shocker.
So I'm glad they learned their lesson there. Now, well, it was a fun ride from 2017 through 2020, being caught up in the hype and the every bit of news was very exciting.
Now they have stated that they are going to continue having a robust community relationship. But yes, I believe quite strongly that we have seen, and I mean, I've been saying this for a while. I really think we're going to now. Again, I gave them a pass because I believe they were capable of it, but I don't believe they're capable of it anymore. But yeah, no, I mean, I really thought that they were going to be capable of this, but
I think they were capable. They just didn't pull it off because of some problematic choices.
Probably, yeah.
If they wanted to, I mean, if they really to bring on Keanu Reeves as Silverhand and really completely change the direction of the game like that was not. It didn't work. It didn't work. When it altered the game from what people were expecting, what they had been talking about beforehand that this game was going to be. Two. You remember that? There were going to be 2 open world environments. And there was that got scrapped. Like there was all this stuff, we saw the posters on the wall inside CD Projekt Red when we did the studio tour with Mad Queen way back. The virtual studio tour via our pizza drone.
Yes, the
pizza
virtual
drone.
The virtual one that was in no way, shape, or form actual. Yes, that one.
Yeah. But yes, as Jagos points out, yeah, talk about the disappointment. Yeah, it was the high was pretty exciting, but now it's just a big slump. And a lot of us
like real heroin. I know. I shouldn't have made that joke.
Don't do drugs. Don't do drugs.
Drugs are bad. Okay.
Well, not even kidding. I had someone very close to me passed away from a drug overdose, and so definitely had a long talk with my kids about it. Anyway, so Outriders is out. Going back
2 days. 2 days. Well, not. I mean, like
pretty soon. April 1st it comes out. Is that?
Yeah.
So 2 days. Thursday.
It's like 30 some odd hours from right now, from the live. We're gonna be diving into that. We're gonna be streaming that on the main channel. We're gonna be streaming that on the main channel. We're gonna dive in. We're gonna see the story. We're gonna see how the game plays out. It's I have my qualms, but it's cheaper than normal. It doesn't appear to be an excessive amount of DLC. Seems to be, for the most part, fairly fun, which is, I mean, an amazing concept in this day and age that a game could be fun. I mean, imagine that. That's just like, wow.
Well, there are a lot of fun games, and honestly, as I've said, I don't want to get too far into it, but I've been drowning my lack of my RPG craving, my heavy RPG craving that Cyberpunk did not satisfy. I've been getting that satisfied by Kingdom Come Deliverance, and so this is, I think, it's the first game in a while where I'm going to try to 100% it, and I'm already planning to go buy all the DLCs that I don't have. So, I mean, usually I don't stick with a game long enough just because of the nature of my job with YouTube. I have to move on from game to game to game, but I'm like, I want to see this thing through to completion, and I'm really curious to see what Warhorse Studios is going to come up with next. I don't know if it's going to be a Kingdom Come 2 or some other game. But yes, Outriders, I'm not typically into the heavy multiplayer looter shooters, but I spent some time in Outriders and thoroughly enjoyed it. So definitely, like, if I can recommend it, then it's probably something, you looter shooter fans. And we talked about this as well, how this is the game that Anthem was supposed to be. So
Basically,
if you wanted Anthem to be good, check out Outriders for sure. Jago says play Yakuza. It gives me that Cyberpunk fix. Interesting, sure.
It is horrifyingly disappointing to see what happened with them, with Anthem, and to see then the success of this game, which comes from a reasonably smaller studio, with didn't have as many resources, that just said, "Hey, we just want to make something interesting and fun." Imagine that concept, something interesting and fun.
There's been many examples of that recently. So we see now with Outriders, and again, I'm going back a few years with Kingdom Come, but that game was amazing for this. It has its limitations because it was a smaller studio. Greedfall too.
And also that Sense a Cyberpunk Ghost Story, highly recommend. That was the haunted apartment that, I cannot play that game by myself. So if you guys want to keep me company on a stream sometime, let me know, because I haven't finished the game yet. I really want to finish it, but I need company to keep me sane.
When are you going to start streaming, Moon?
Soon. So my headphones went dead and I was talking, and I don't know if you guys were talking at the same time, because everything just suddenly went quiet, and I'm like, better keep talking. And then nobody was talking. And,
I did hear you saying something, but it was quiet. So anyway, I think that's a sign that we should wrap up. So anyway, thank you so much, everybody. Was there any final thoughts though? I don't want to rush it, but yeah, I think we've covered the topic.
Yeah. There were a handful of other news stories, guys. It's very exciting news. Very exciting news. So China has cracked down with the aid of Tencent, and they have found a ton of these game hackers who were making hacks for games, and they caught them, and they arrested them, and they took them into custody, and immediately sent them off to the facility to start hacking other countries and so yes, that happened. So expect fewer hacks in your games. Expect way more stuff.
No, Sab was kind of joking about the end part of them being recruited, but yeah, it was crazy. These guys were raking in millions of dollars, selling, and they were selling subscriptions. They were selling subscriptions to use their hacks. Yeah. To use their hacks for $10 a day.
Well, because again, this is how it works in China. In China, you have a gaming cafe. You are off work for 2 days, 3 days. It's a vacation. You go down to the gaming cafe. It's a little room with a bed, a computer, a chair, and a whole bunch of pre-installed games with a whole bunch of pre-installed, ready-to-use passwords, accesses, all that kind of stuff. And you slap down $600 equivalent currency for that weekend, and you get access to unlimited cheats, hacks. You go into every game, you dominate every single game. You get on the mic and call them names, and you make farting noises, or just scream at them, or laugh at them being pissed off because you're headshotting them through a wall 15 miles away, and all that. And every time you get a suspension or a ban, you just go, hey, waiter, ban here, new game. So the guy comes over, installs a new game, copy, boom, done. You're off and running again. What did it cost you? $20-$30 more. That's their idea. That's what some people's idea of entertainment was and is. And that's why certain games like PUBG, really problematic for PUBG on this, they continually allowed this to happen, knowing, and they didn't cut off players from that part of the world. They didn't put them in their own ecosystem. They just let them run amok. And the amount of times that a game was just suddenly destroyed by one guy who got 15 or 20 kills automatically with a sniper rifle in the span of 15 seconds, that ruined people's games, that ruined people's experience, that is these guys. That is these guys. So they are now caught. They are now in jail, which I'm sure they're going to stay in for a real long time and not be processed over to the government's like hacking division to cause trouble elsewhere. Sure. I bet you. And I'm sure they're not going to confiscate all their millions of dollars either to be thrown back into the local treasury either. Yeah. Also, another big one. Electronic Arts has announced. Oh, some reason I'm getting really sleepy all of a sudden. Announced a next-gen golf game called EA Sports PGA Tour.
Now you're just making people want to tune out.
I do not. I have no interest in golf games, and this game can go shove it.
Hey,
I want mini golf with flaming windmills and dragons that eat the ball. That's what I want. What is this? What is this golf?
It's like the one kind of sports game that I enjoy is golf, a golf game. So
yeah,
there. So you can go shove it. Not that I'm going to be playing this EA one, but anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Well, and with that scintillating ending, we're going to wrap up the show for today. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us on YouTube, on Twitch. Thank you so much for being so active in the live chat and for all of your interaction. Don't forget to slam that like button before you leave if you haven't yet. Special thank you to our Patreon supporters and channel members who helped to make this content possible. You've seen their names appearing on top of the screen as we've been going through the podcast today. Their names appear in the marquee there. We really appreciate you all. That's our Patreon supporters, channel members, and Twitch subscribers. So if you're interested in becoming a patron, we're going to be improving and finalizing. This has been in the works for a while. There's just been so much going on, but we've been finalizing our new list of patron rewards that we're going to be publishing there shortly. So find the link in the description below for the Patreon, for the merch store, all of that stuff. Subscribe to the main channel. That really helps. Subscribe here if you're not a subscriber here on the Triple S Podcasts channel. We're trying to grow this thing, and we're trying to hit that 1,000 subs goal as quickly as we can. So, all of that, and of course the Discord server. Join the Discord server for great conversation and great community. If you're listening after the fact, it's on SoundCloud, iTunes, or any of the platforms that this podcast goes to. We appreciate interactions there as well. And don't forget, you can join the live show on the YouTube and Twitch and interact with us and other listeners. Be part of the discussion. This is a presentation of the Triple S League. It is known as the Augmented Reality Podcast. And on behalf of Cyb and Moontag, thank you all so much for listening. I will talk to you again very soon.